A very good evening from the Northeastern Service of All India Radio. A big hearty welcome to this live Radio Blitz program on the topic corruption, a major setback for development, a menace which is still prevalent and happening in our societies in every nook and corners and every sphere of the society. They talk about development of all kinds in every public gathering. Speeches were hurled, promises made by our political and public leaders, especially during election times. Bureaucrats and officers, officials, businessmen gave assurances to the general public that they will be provided with this. But still, all this seemed to be a far cry than achieving it. If there is a strong commitment on the part of the state and the central government to root out corruption in the country, will it not be possible? Or is it so deep-rooted that it is impossible to do away with the social menace? India is one of the highest states in the world in terms of corruption. It's the high time that India is a developed country by now, and all its states in the Union a smart city. In spite of its huge manpower, resources and skill development, why is not happening even after 72 years of its independence? To dwell at length on this particular agenda, which is a serious issue, I'm so honored and privileged to have in our studios, joined by other studios by our panelists from different walks of life. First, from Guwahati, I would welcome Mr. Samidra Gupta Kashyap, Senior Journalist. Good evening and welcome to the show. We have Mr. Y.Rupachandra, Editor-in-Chief, Impact TV Imphal. We have Mr. Kezokto Khoto Savi, Advocate, Guwahati High Court, Kohima Bench, Kohima Law College and President, Nagaland Voluntary Consumers Organization. And in the studios here in Shillong, we have Professor B.Mishra, Head of Economics Department, Northeastern Hill University. Good evening to all our gentlemen. And before we continue with this discussion, I would inform our panelists that this particular conversation that we are talking here is, the forum is open. You can always come in between. Okay, so first and foremost, I would like to strike a keynote for this discussion is a quote by Joe Biden, a former Vice President of the United States. He says, corruption is a cancer that eats away at a citizen's faith in democracy, diminishes the instinct for innovation and creativity. I would first put the Honorable esteemed guest from Shillong to give your opening remarks. Professor.
You are rightly said that corruption is a cancer. To me, corruption is a symptom of fundamental institutional weaknesses in Indian society. The word corruption means destructions, ruining or spoiling a society or nation. A corrupt society is characterized by immorality and lack of fear or respect for the law. The most popular and simplest definition of corruption is given by the World Bank. According to this definition, corruption is that it is the abuse of public power for private benefit. So corruptions, it exists in many forms. It may be social, it may be economic, it may be cultural, it may be political, and it may be moral. So as you know that India has improved its rank little bit. So that is, India's rank in 2012 was 94 out of 176 countries in terms of Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, and India improved its ranks from 2012 to 2017, that is with the perception rank of 81, and from 2017 to 2018, India rose by 3 points to 78 in terms of corruption perception index.
Okay, Professor, we'll come back again to you. I would love to go to Mr. Samidra Gupta Kashyap. Can you hear us? Okay, we go to Imphal. Mr. Y.Rupachandra, welcome to the show. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, your opening remarks, 73 years of independent India. We are free from the clutches of foreign rule, but not yet free from the clutches of corruption. What's your opening remark?
Like Professor has already emphasized our status in international global index, India sits pretty bad when you look at it. Out of 0 to 100, we are at 81st. After that, we have improved a little bit. But that said, that improvement cannot be called improvement at all, because every nation is striving to be somewhere between 0 to 50. So being in a spectrum of 80 plus and then improving 1 or 2 points is no improvement at all. And in your opening introduction, you have rightly said that it is a cancer, as Joe Biden has said. And if India today has not been able to become a power amongst all these superpower, one of the reasons may be because of this corruption, which has been very in depth. And you also said that whether it will be possible for us to eradicate it. In my opinion, we'll be lucky if we can reduce it. But to eradicate corruption will be totally impossible. That said, it should not be construed that we should not strive for it. Manipur, also the present government came into power on the plank of fighting corruption. There is a perception creation process going on in the state. We are creating the Lok Ayuktas. This government has set up this anti-corruption cell, and there's been almost 400 complaints when the government first came on to the public and said since setting up but that is not enough. We haven't seen any major conviction or major political leaders being put behind the bars as promised in the poll promises.
Okay.
So what we are seeing is that corruption is being used by different political parties to come to power. But are they really trying to eradicate corruption? Are they free of corruption? That's a big question that we should be actually discussing across the state. Northeast, with its all its, unstable.
Yes, sir. We'll come back to you, sir. We'll come back. We'll just go to Kohima, talk to Mr. Kezo Koto. Sorry. Good evening, sir.
Yes.
The other panelist has briefed this discussion on corruption. What is your...
Yes, as you have rightly pointed out, India is yet to be a developed country because of corruption. In this regard, I would like to say, from school days till now, we are reading books that India is a developing country. Our parents has already read the same in the school days in textbook. One of the major loophole which is stopping India from becoming a developed country is the corruption. Corruption is, today India faces the problems of corruptions at various levels. In top levels, the corruption is in the form of schemes, and in the bottom levels, the corruption is in the form of bribes. We often say that politicians are corrupt, but that is not the only arena where corruption lies. Corruption lies in every sector, and it has ruined our country, which is a major setback for development.
Okay, Mr.
Corruption is an issue.
I'll come back, sir.
All right.
We'll just go to Guwahati. Mr. Samidra Gupta Kashyap is ready. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay, we are talking about this menace. I don't think so it's a disease. It's more than that. It's yet to find a cure. Corruption, especially in India. We'll be talking about the Northeast also, but your opening remarks, sir.
I think corruption has gone into the DNA of the people of India.
Yes, I think DNA. I think that has to be.
You cannot remove it now. Only question is to how to reduce it. Okay. If you look at it, the first corruption, major scandal that took place in India was itself in 1948 itself. Subsequently, if you remember, there was a jeep scandal where they had apparently procured a large number of jeeps for use of the army and the paramilitary forces. Then there was another scandal about making roads, construction of roads in the then NEFA. And when the Chinese aggression took place, there were neither jeeps nor roads in NEFA.
Okay.
It began from there. Within about 2 years of independence, we had scandals and scandals. And if you look at the Northeast, I think this is one of the most corrupt regions in the entire country.
Okay.
You have scandals all over.
Yeah.
You have the numerous scandals in Assam, like the LOC scandal, the Assam Public Service Commission scandal, and so on. If you look at Nagaland, you have the lottery scandal. If you look at the Arunachal Pradesh, you'll find that the public distribution system scandal, where a former chief minister was sent to jail. If you look at Mizoram, you had the Aizawl Urban Water Supply Scheme scandal. The scandal all over.
Okay. Okay.
What is more important is that, right from bribes, Mr. Savi had talked about bribes. From bribes to donations, everything is corruption.
Yeah.
One small example. Where do the contractors give the people, the organizations, the student bodies, political parties, donations from? It is he takes a cut from the development fund that is allotted for a road or a project. He doesn't give it from his pocket. So the 40 to 50% of the funds that are meant for development goes to the people as donations. There is a puja committee, there is a sports committee, there is a this committee, that committee, Mahila Samiti, students union, political parties, everything, everybody thrives on the money that comes out from the development schemes. That itself is corruption.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to Professor B.Mishra. They say the problem with corruption today, you can't have a cure for it, but there is a word we call transparency, a mechanism to check, because if you can't do away with it, at least have a mechanism, transparency factor, where when it's transparent, nothing goes beyond under the table. What's your opinion, sir?
It is easy to argue about transparency, but when it comes to its real implementations, it becomes difficult to keep an eye on the transparency aspects of the transactions that takes place everywhere. We cannot have on the road to control the traffic police.
Yeah.
We cannot have what you call the cameras everywhere. And you cannot have the cameras in every offices. And monitoring all the activities of the officials or non-officials, it becomes very, very difficult. So maybe some other factors that one may talk about, that when it comes to reducing what you call corruptions, as one of the panelists said that we cannot remove corruptions altogether. And he is right, because it will take centuries or at least 20 to 50 years to eradicate corruptions completely in Indian context.
Okay. Mr. Y.Rupachandra, your take on the mechanism for transparency.
I want to flag an issue. Before I come to the transparency issue, let me flag an issue taking on Samudra's what he said. So we know that the corruption has become bone deep, but more importantly what is now happening is justification of corrupt practices supposedly instituted for serving the society. Now these people go to these contractors for social services. Now when these corrupt people, they take money through corruption and give these, they kind of justify themselves as serving the society.
Oh yes, yes.
So this justification of corruptions by those who are corrupt itself is becoming another factor for us to consider. Now what is happening is we are concerned about big corruptions which we cannot catch. So what we are doing is in the streets, the traffic polices, when they take 5 or 10 rupees, we start justifying, saying that, oh, it's okay, when these people 5 rupees, 10 rupees, why should we be worried? You are not targeting those people who take crores. But then we should be intolerant to even this. Because when we stop public display of this corruption, which is going to escalate and become crores, so we have to also stop justifying corruption. Now, coming to the transparency factor, like Professor has already said, it's going to be very difficult. The media is supposed to be on the vanguard of this transparency structure. We are the one who are supposed to be exposing the corruptions, but the media scenario has also become very blurred, with media being owned by the corporates who themselves, whose activities we cannot actually go in depth. Now, I was looking at the Lok Ayukta, which we have recently enacted in Manipur, and I was finding if there were a way where common people can actually use the Lok Ayukta as a transparent manner of catching people with corruption, but I find that some clauses there. For example, you have to pay 1,000 rupees. So you have to be at least rich enough to fork out 1,000 rupees to catch a corrupt man. Then another clause that says is that when you file corruption charges against any one of these officials, bureaucrats, public officers, you have got to give your name. There is a disclosure part where when the notice is served to the gentleman who I am alleging for corruption, my name will come out. Now you have heard about in India whistleblowers being killed. So in this situation, like Professor has said, it's very difficult us to imagine a perfect mechanism, system where you can actually check corruption. Now all these corruption cases which we see are coming out, in fact, is inter-official bureaucratic vendetta which has been leaked to the public through the media for the government to act. So whenever big corruption cases come out, I suspect there will be an inner hand, because transparency system cannot ensure that we catch corrupted people.
And I'll just go to Nagaland. Mr. Kizoto, your opinion on time. We are talking about transparency and the mechanism. Has it been effective till date in the country, and especially the Northeast?
In the transaction of funds meant for infrastructure projects, it's almost failed on the part of government. But I would rather also suggest, when you talk about mechanism for transparency, the Right to Information Act 2005. The object of this act is to promote transparency and accountability. And my dear panelist has also suggested about Lok Ayokta. Lok Ayokta is to check corruption. However, the Right to Information Act 2005 is to furnish information which would show transparency, which will promote transparency. And of course, because of this non-transparency, the rate of corruption is going up and up every year. It's increasing every year.
Okay, Mr. Samidra Gupta.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Transparency, how do we go about it? It's not happening still till 73 years that we have attained free.
True. My friend from the co-panelist from Kohima, he has pointed out, even after the passing of the Right to Information Act 2005, initially there was a flush of RTI applications. But two things have started happening. I have noticed it in Assam very closely. One is that a large number of RTI applicants who are asking questions like how much money has been allotted for this village, that road, that scheme, this school and so on, they came under a lot of threat. At least one person in Lakhimpur or Dhemaji district of Assam, when he raised his question through an RTI application, he was brutally murdered by a group of goons in front of his minor children. There was a lady in Udalguri district, Namita Subedi. People came and stoned at her house because she was asking questions about a road not being repaired. In Nalbari, a person who had filed an RTI application in a block asking certain questions, the name of this applicant was apparently leaked out to the corrupt nexus of contractors and officers by the video. And he received threats from different PCOs at that time. Right from there was a PCO in front of the SP's office in Nalbari. One phone call was made from that. On the other hand, on the flip side, a section of people, as I said, that corruption has gone down to the grassroots. Some people have started using the RTI as a tool for earning money, for blackmailing people. That's number two. And number three, there's a nexus of politicians, contractors, bureaucrats and militants. If you look at the Dima Hasao district of Assam, this is one district in the entire country which had got 3,000 crore rupees of development funds for construction of a 4-lane highway, east-west corridor, and for construction of a broad gauge railway track. At least 1,000 to 1,200 crore rupees were siphoned off by this nexus of politicians, bureaucrats, militants and officers and contractors. Everybody was there, so everyone shares the loot.
Okay, I'll just come back to Professor Vishwambara. We just heard someone from the panelists telling us it's in the genes, it's in our DNA. We're talking about this integrity as a way of life. How do we start inculcating, sir, to our children so that in the next 30 years when they grow up, corruption can come down? Because we're talking a moral way of life, the moral understanding of what is right and what is wrong. Because now at this age you can't tell me don't do this, don't do that. But integrity, the upbringing and the connotations of that aspect, how do we deal with this? To inculcate, to put in integrity as a way of life, a moral.
I think the charity begins at home,
Yeah.
and the parents are equally responsible to train their children what to do and what not to do, and how to remain alert when they grow up, and to keep an open eye on each aspect of activities that they carry out or when they interact with their peers or the officials in the real life situations. I think it is the high time that we should include in our curriculum, starting from the school till to the university level, on some chapters or topics on corruptions. That is economics part of it, the political effect or the effect of corruptions on the economy, on all other aspects, social, economic, cultural and so on and so forth. In recent past, we have introduced EVS, environmental science, as a part and parcel of our curriculum starting from the school to the university levels. I think that can help, that can train, that can make the students vigilant about the corrupt practices and the bad impact or adverse impact of corruptions on the economy, on all other aspects of economic life, political life, cultural life and so on and so forth. If we can succeed in that, I think that will be a great beginning for all of us.
Okay. Mr. Y.Rupachandra, what about this? We're talking about having a moral understanding.
I completely agree with the professor on the educational sector and on the family sector. Because, but what is happening now? We have parents when they hear about someone getting employed, they ask, is there any side income? So there are parents who ask, they are not actually encouraging their children to do their job honestly. They're asking, along with the salary, is there any side income in your job? That's the kind of mentality that we are having across the country. So at this point, what we can take a leaf out of what the professor just said is, we must actually focus on the family values and on the education. We have to teach our children how corruption impacts. In fact, as a media man, we've been involved with all this electoral process. And we've been trying to break down the economies of corruption. See, we take 500 rupees for casting our vote. Now, just for this 500 rupees, we give away our right for 5 years. And for next 5 years, we are going to buy water. I'm talking about Manipur scenario. Okay. At 500 rupees per, say, 2,000 liter. Now, if we add up the mathematics, we are surely losing out. So we are telling that instead of taking 500 rupees, you tell your politician, you tell your leader that give us water at 150, that is the government tax, we'll pay 500 every month. Okay. Even that is cheaper. So what we have to deconstruct is how corruption impacts our life economically. So efforts are being made by this government, I understand, trying to transfer money through banks, making people open banks. But the tragedy is that even there, those who are corrupt finding way of taking money out from these poor illiterate people who have opened bank accounts. So I think at the end, we have to focus our target on the education part, where and the family values, where every children should be taught by the parents that being corrupt hurts not only the nation, not only your state, but your own bylands, your water supplies, your electric supplies, your fees that you pay to the schools. Those all will be impacted.
Okay. Mr. Kozuto, we're talking about India, 73 years of freedom yet to develop, let alone the northeastern part of the region. When will we cling to that development part where corruption is not part of our lives?
The greater concern is the northeastern India. Unless corruption is reduced, the northeastern India will not be developed. Today, when we look at the largest contributors to corruptions are entitlement programs and social spending schemes enacted by the government, like Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, the National Rural Health Mission, the National Food Security Act, etc. And other areas of corruption include to pay billions of rupees in bribes annually to numerous regulatory and police stops on interstate highways. This kind of illegal collection of cash on the highway is very common in the Northeast. Even my state, I claim that Nagaland state is a state of illegal collections. So this is something, if we don't remove all this component to make Northeast a corrupt-free, it's a long way to go.
Can I come in?
Please.
Yeah. So we are talking about this corruption at a time when the former finance minister of the country is in jail. Number two, this is the 150th birth anniversary we are celebrating of Mahatma Gandhi. So one person can stand up and break this vicious cycle. We have witnessed it happening when the Assam chief minister was looking for a way to fulfill his promise of clamping down on corruption. One young lady was ready with a few lakh of rupees to pay to a dalal, to a middleman, to get a job in the APSC. She at the last moment decided to go to the police. And today, the chairman of the Assam Public Service Commission, two of the honorable members are in jail, and several officers, about 60 of them, who got into these jobs, government jobs, gazetted posts, Assam Police Service, Assam Civil Service and so on, they are all in jail today. One lady stood up. I will not pay the bribe, I will go to the police. So one person can break the chain. I see a ray of hope there.
There's one aspect I would put the question through in the panel right now. Northeast being the powerhouse of sports, we're being neglected for years. Despite the talent, young children, young kids are leading an astray life. Something is wrong, because why? When you talk about football, getting a seat in the football team, getting a number jersey there, in all spheres of this discipline of sports, I invite anyone, Professor Bishambara, you can start. We're talking about this powerhouse of sports, but we are still lacking, despite the talent, we are still behind the trail.
Actually, Here in Northeast, the concept of competitions is lacking. It is a closed type of society in Northeast where the competitions, it remains confined to the social group who reside in this particular part of the country that is called Northeast. Why this is so? Because over a period of time, we have developed what you call developed a situation where the government has adopted a policy of appeasement. I think that has culminated in the form of various types of corruptions here in Northeast. Because over a period of time, given the fact that in formulating the various policies of the government has it preferred to bring to the system what you call a demand quality approach. What is the demand quality approach? The demand quality approach, it refers to a situation when the government policy prescriptions, it reflects the articulations that are being made by the pressure groups. And the government always go for appeasing the pressure groups. We have failed to bring to our system what we call a command quality approach where the policies are being all the times being imposed from above. I think unless you change the strategy in formulations of our public policies by taking into considerations a well mix of these two approaches, that is both the demand quality and the command quality, then it will be mere failure.
Okay, one interesting factor, I'll just go to Mr. Y.Rupachandra. It is kind of ironic because we're talking corruption, Northeast is still way behind, but we're talking about sports. Manipur is doing so very well despite this impediment. What's your opinion on this in your state? I know there is corruption.
If you look at all these sports persons who have made it big,
okay,
they come from poor background. These are people with no hope of paying lakhs of rupees for job. So they think that by getting a national medal, an international goal, they will get into the bureaucratic system, they will get into the job system. So that was one of the driving forces that drove them to take to sports in mass. So we see a lot of these young people. But what is happening now, as we are talking about corruption, now corruption has also creeped into this area now.
Yeah.
We find different federations, associations fighting each other, becoming two from one, then three from two. For what? Recently, we had this major problem with the All Manipur Football Association, Imphal, and the state missionary had to step in and conduct the election. And Manipur is supposed to have produced great footballers. And one of the observations from the All India Football Federation in a letter to the Imphal, which I had privy, was that the footballers of Manipur have lost faith in those people who are organizing football. So this being the situation, I would say corruption has crept into sports organization in the state, and because this organization also patronizes or invites politicians to become their heads.
Okay, sir,
corruption has become more.
Yeah, I respect your opinion. I think we are running a bit of
similar thing has happened in Assam also. If you remember, in the Assam Cricket Association, there was a case, the police came in, the investigating agencies came in, the High Court had to step in, and I think one of the top officers was arrested, and heaps of documents were seized by the police and the inquiry is still going on because there's big money there.
I think that is the problem.
In case of Nagaland,
the issues
in Nagaland we have young talents,
okay, sir.
But I would say that due to lack of infrastructure development and facilities, we can't promote much. And why it is, we have cases where playgrounds are completed in paper, but in reality it is not.
Okay.
And what is this?
Yes,
it is simply corruption.
Very
Very recently, the government of India was sending CBI to several departments. Why not they send to Northeast also? This is my appeal.
Gentlemen, I think we are running out of time. I just want some concluding remarks from each one of you in just a line. Okay, we are running out of time. I respect.
As I said, I think one person has to stand up somewhere and break that cycle, that vicious cycle. And there are people who have done it.
Okay,
the
wonderful.
case of the Assam Public Service Commission. One lady stood up and said, "No, I'm not going to pay the bribe.
Okay.
I'm going to the police."
That is commendable. Mr. Y.Rupachandra.
There must be a fast track record and time limit for concluding all corruption cases without dragging on, because we see cases being filed in, political parties taking mileage, but you never see conviction until and unless you convict corrupt people and tell the people that this government is serious about corruption, corruption will go on.
Okay, Mr. Kazuto, your closing remarks. I know it's too short, but
All
we
right.
have to.
Just very simple, that corruption flourishes from top to bottom level. And as a result of this, the poor innocent people are becoming victim of this corruption.
Professor Samidra?
Very quickly, I'll make 3-4 points. As you know, there are many myths about corruptions which have to be exploded if we really want to combat it. First, public awareness is a must to combat corruption in India. For this, it should be a must to improve our educational system, because education is the best mean to understand fundamental rights and right-wrong conversations. Second, corruption can be remedied if people can understand and start to believe the value of ethics and morality in their life. Third, responsiveness, accountability, and transparency are a must for a clean system.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I respect all of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank
Mr.
you. Thank you so
Samidra,
much.
Mr. Jumna, Mr. Kazoto, Ms. Professor Vishwambara. I just want to end this discussion by this quote by the late President, late APJ Abdul Kalam. He says, if a country is to be corruption-free and become a nation of beautiful minds, I strongly feel there are 3 key members who can make a difference: the father, the mother, and the teacher. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you. And just want to acknowledge the engineers on duty: Ewarsh, EC Shilash, Lorenzo Waj, Rahul Moria. And this program is produced by J. Gangte and a presentation of the Northeastern Service of All India Radio on the topic corruption, a major setback for development. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.